How you doing? Wow. So my name is Gavino Castillo, and I'm going to let you know about my story, how I lived, and where I'm at today. But on the brochure, it says that you can't use my past against me. What I meant by that is I can't use my own past against me to hurt me, and neither can you. What I buried behind me is there. If you want to carry it and lift it up, then it's on you, you know? Today I live a good life. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I grew up in a home with my mother and my father who loved each other very much. My father was a drug transporter. He smuggled heroin and cocaine from Mexico City back in the 50s. He was in and out of McNeil Island back in them days in prison, and had two sisters of mine, of my sisters, and I was the youngest boy. I was his only son. And as a kid growing up, the only things I remember was a lot of stuff. A lot of events had gone on at the age of 3 years old that I remember and recall. And one of them was me playing with my father. And how I played with my father was there was trust and love, a bond. Like most kids play baseball, and you push the bike, the three-wheeler bike, you take the three-wheel things, and you know, those kind of things. Well, how I played with my father was different. And it was fun, and to me, I loved my father, like I said, and I trusted him. And we would get a bag of apples, and I'd be in the back of the wall in the backyard, and my brothers and sisters would stand at a distance, older than I. And I put the apple on my head, and he'd shoot it with a crossbow. Now, that's the way me and my father played. Now, I understand that might be a little bit difficult and extreme. I'm also Apache Indian, and my mother was born here in the United States, but she's second generation from Mexico City. My father also had two lives. So the house that he built here in the United States, the cars, the motorcycles, the horses, the exotic animals, the spider monkey that I had growing up with, and all the little suits that I had. Yeah, this is, I like, you know, looks like a gangster, huh? But, you know, those events stick to my head like it was yesterday. A lot of events stick to my head like yesterday. But what happened was my father had two lives. He was married to another woman in Mexico City, had other children. Everything that was here in the United States, he had identical in Mexico City. Same type of house, everything. Same cars, same horses, everything. All the names of the animals were same names. My mother didn't know anything about this until after. I remember an event, argument in the hallway, and I was a little kid, 3 years old, of course, and I remember this stuff, argument going on in the hallway, and I heard a loud noise. That loud noise was my father shooting my mother in the head with a gun. The bullet ricocheted off of her, and she lived. The thing was that she just looking at me, yelling, and he turned around and saw me and ran past me. I remember those events. My father was assassinated in Mexico City. He was killed because people get jealous of certain things, and that's a bad lifestyle. People are haters, of course. You know, they don't like things like that. They want what they have. So I grew up with stepbrothers and half-brothers. I was abused in home. I was mentally, physically, and sexually abused by family members in my neighborhood. And although my neighborhood, where I lived at, we were all related. So I started building a big hate, harboring hate in my heart, vengeful heart. As a kid growing up, no matter if I went and got into a fight at school or if I got beat up at home. If I got in a fight and I so happened to won, and I went home and told it about it because I was happy I won, I got beat up. So I didn't tell too much no more about what's going on with Gavino. I didn't say too much at all. I just held in a lot of feelings. Didn't know how to control them. My mother had to raise me by herself, and she had to be my mother and my father. So the beatings and everything like that, sometimes there was blood, a lot of blood. And of course, after the end of the blood, you know, she'd clean me up and she'd cry, and I'd be with her holding her tight because that was my mom. Brothers and sisters moved out. They all moved away. And so I'm alone, starving and hungry. Mom has to work and pay the mortgage on the home. And I would have to jump the fence when I come back from school, and I would sometimes wake up at nighttime starving, and I would jump out of my window into the neighbors' houses. For many years doing that, and going into their houses when they were asleep, and taking food out of refrigerators, and bringing it home, and putting it under my bed. Not knowing as a child growing up what rotten food smells like, because I got used to the smell. My mom was finding out that I was stealing food from somewhere, and we didn't have that food. Finally, she found out that I was taking food from somewhere, and I would get beat for it. As time gone on, by the time I was 9 years old, I got involved in a gang of my neighborhood, and I wasn't allowed to get jumped in because that's where I was from. My family's from there. So I didn't need to get jumped in, but I did. I chose 2 people to do it, and they were much older. They were in high school, and some of them were out of high school. Well, what happened was when they did what they did, when family members and friends found out about it, they got hurt for it. And it's my bag that I went and did that, but, it was forgiven. But they never liked me after that. By the time I was 15 years old, I considered myself no longer a gang member, but I am from my barrio. It's like, I excelled. I just was a loner all the time. I was always doing things on my own. And people were just, to me, in my way. So what happened was I started doing crimes, a lot of crimes, and having money. And I liked my money, but I also gave it away. And I gave it to people who were less unfortunate or friends that had needed money. I gave it to them, not knowing to pay me back. And I did a lot of stuff. By the time I was 17 years old, I was already pronounced dead 3 times. And last time I woke up in a morgue, I was nearly toe tagged. And I woke up in a freezer, and it was awful cold in there. I was dark, it was cold, it was metal. And I literally said, it's fucking cold in here, someone bring me a blanket. And somebody did, because there was a scream and a yell, and that's all I remember. And the lights came on, and they told me, hey, man, say your name over and over, your phone number over. And I told them, don't you touch me, I'm a minor. I didn't want them to cut me. I was scared of doctors. And now I'm sitting in the morgue, Well, the time came when I finally woke up. My mom was holding on to my hand, and she was laying next to me. And I shake her, and I told her, wake up. And she looked at me. She goes, I'm going to kill you, Gavino, like that, And I looked at her, and she looked at me like, what's wrong? I go, why the fuck am I alive? Because, see, I've done so much stuff already, and by the time I was 17 years old, I shouldn't be alive. And she knew it. As the time went on, by the time I was 17 and a half years old, I was looking at 15 years in prison. And it didn't go well. And my mother was sitting in court with me fighting the case, and they want to give me 15 years. And she had to talk to me. So can I talk to my son? And I'm shackled like a madman. And she came up to me, and they said, no, go ahead, talk to him. So she walked up to me. She got me by my arm real tight, and she shook me really hard. District attorney looks over, about this close, watching. And I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, and my mom's shaking me really hard. Mijo, take the deal. Take the deal, mijo. Imagine all the stuff that I know that you've done that they don't know. That fucked me up, excuse my language. I thought she was telling them, And I just smiled at her, and I thought about it because what I had told her before, I shouldn't be alive. So what happened was, I guess the district attorney felt something in his heart where lesser charges. And did 9. Give me 9 years. So by the time I come home, it's 1991. I was with my mom for maybe a week, and she went on vacation. Thinking she was doing a retreat, going around up and down the state on a retreat with her church, praying up and down, going to Laughlin, Vegas, a little gamble here and there. Nothing harming that, but with her church people, you know what I mean? And she used to write to me about stuff like that when I was in prison. And she was also telling me, I'm glad you're in there because you're safe, And I just trip out. And then when I'm out, she was on vacation too, so it's all good. What happened was she was not on vacation. And I stood in a home empty with nobody to come and visit me from my family members or anybody. In my neighborhood, of course, I saw some of the fellas and hung out with them. I started drinking and getting high. They're part of my family. They know my parents. We're related in a way. And what happened was my mom was not up in church, and she wasn't doing that. She was almost 3 months had passed, and she was not nowhere near having a vacation. She was in her deathbed in the hospital. They didn't want to tell me that she was dying. She was in intensive care for 3.5 months, and she had pancreatic cancer, holding on to wait for me to show up. But nobody in my family wanted to tell me. That's probably because of the way I lived, that she felt that and everyone felt that I had no heart, that I just don't have no feelings. And pretty much I didn't, because as a kid growing up, that was smashed. My feelings, the cares, the loves, the remorse, the empathy. So that's why I did certain things that I was capable of doing that no other person could probably do. That's why I knew that I wasn't supposed to be alive, and I keep coming back, and it keeps pissing me off. My dreams are nightmares. So I live my life today to its fullest, 500% in everything I do. I have to. I don't lie to nobody, and I'm not going to lie to you. If I do, then I'm wasting my time, and I'm wasting my seat in homeboy industry. Because there's somebody like me that used to be in prison, wishing that he can take a seat like that, but he can't. What happened is I ended up doing several robberies again, and I ended up back in prison after my mom's death. And they gave me another 8 years. So when I come back out, I didn't want to come home because there's nothing to come home to. There's nobody. I didn't want to start over. There's nothing to start over for. No home, no family. And I am that guy that people talk about in cliches. You know, there is no man of his own island. I used to raise my hand. I go, you guys are lying because I'm holding all that in. There's no one to talk to. You know, and what happened was I ended up getting out. And when I got out, I did more robberies, and it was less than 24 hours. I was still in my state blues. I had a gun in hand. I was in a parking structure in Vermont off the 101 freeway in the old Hilton Hotel that was built for the Summer Olympics. When I was in that parking lot, I just sat there for a while, and when I walked out, I go to this Denny's to go rob. And I already have enough money. I just was bored and didn't have nothing to do. By the time it was over, I'm walking halfway up in there, and I looked behind me, and I saw this big old sign in this big old hotel, and it said Delancey Street Foundation. And I remember of this name of a person who kept coming in and out of prison while I was still there. He'd get busted, come back, keep coming. I go, man, why don't you just stay out or stay, you know? Well, this time he stood. He gave him life. He was a friend of mine, and he told me about that place. He told me it'd be really good for me because I'm the type of person that will be able to go through that program. Very hardcore behavior modification, like military, like the Navy SEALs of behavior modification. Yeah. And that was my program, pretty much. That was my seed. That was my start and my beginning right there. I said I had nothing to lose and everything to gain because, you know, I'm not doing it for nobody but me. So I went to that program. I stood on the incoming bench for 18 hours just to get an interview. That's how determined I was. And just like I'm determined to go out there and get drugs and alcohol and whatever I needed to get, I have to turn that around to do it for the good reasons, for me. And I did the program, and I relocated from that place to Santa Monica Salvation Army in Santa Monica Beach, became an adherent, and also became a soldier for Christ. I have a uniform, blue with S's, that says Save to Serve. I stood there from 2000 to 2007 working for them and participating in everything that I can possibly do for them and give all that I have. I met a girl, and she was doing the same thing. And I fell in love with her. I've never fell in love with anybody or cared about her. She was going through problems at home just like I did when I was a kid, beatings and whatnot. And I even visualized some of it, and I couldn't do nothing about it because that was not my wife and none of my business, you know what I mean? But we would discuss it, and I felt bad about it. We came real close, and after a minute, she left after about 18 months to a year. So that hurted me bad. That was like a death all over again in my heart. I was empty, like my mother passed again. It hurted that much. And I had a job, and I was doing what I was supposed to do, and I kept on doing what I did, the right thing. And months went by, and a friend of hers called me up and said I had a son. And I was happy, man. You know, I was really happy. And I bought toys, clothing. I went as far as buying a child education fund. And I had a job, man. I had money in the bank. I didn't, living on my own, never did that. Never thought I could do something like that. And I was so focused, time just went by so fast. What happened was I had to find out if that baby was mine. So found out that the birth certificates are hiring the public defenders and lawyers, attorneys, and walking to social services. They threw me out, security. They couldn't believe that I was there to do that. They thought I was going to harm somebody. Well, the birth certificate from the private investigator, they showed me a picture of it. It had my name on it, and it said Giovanni Castillo on it. So I was really happy. So now I need to go further. And went as far as the DNA. And the judge, when the DNA finally went through, she's sitting next to me, and he's looking at her and goes, "You don't know whose it is." And I'm like shocked because I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I'm like, I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And he goes, "How are you going to feel, Mr. Castillo, when I read this to you, the negative or the positive?" "I'm going to be all right as long as I know that I'm going to know the truth, because I haven't been told the truth most of my life. And I needed to find out. I couldn't be left out there like that, you know." We read it, and it wasn't mine. It took 7 months to plan my suicide. 7 months, that quick. 7 months went so fast, it lasted 2 years. I put myself in harm's way in every way. I started dealing in firearms, narcotics, from anywhere from the Russians to Armenians to Samoans to Filipinos in different counties. And people I was messing with were pretty mean looking. And I didn't look the way I look like today. I had no hair, and my mustache was bigger, and I looked like Charles Manson. And I was probably like 90 pounds lighter. But every time that something went the right way that it was supposed to go against me, it didn't go that way. And it kept pissing me off. I was tired of being mad at everybody and anybody. I got tired of being mad, period. And what happened is I ended up standing in the middle of a courtroom in Beverly Hills, right down the street right here, in front of Judge Fox. And what happened was he wanted to give me 15 years. 15 years didn't go that way because he found out my past through my job and whatnot, and they said, this is what happened. This is why he's in jail. So he told me he's not going to give me 15 years. I had to do 4.5 years in programs, and I completed every one of them. As of November 14th, I graduated my last program. December 21st, I'm no longer on parole. When I graduated that program, Fabian DeBora at Homeboy Industry told me to get my butt as fast as I can to come and take a urine sample so I could be part of Homeboy Industry. And I've been part of Homeboy Industry for the past 3.5 months. I enjoy it there. I give it all. If there's more for me to do, I'm going to do it. I jump in everything that I possibly can. My role models are the youth, the young teenage youth, women and children that have children that don't know how to raise their children because their parents are probably locked up all their lives also. Those are my role models because, you know, that's the hope, that's the future. And I don't really have a role model, so those are my role models because I don't have anything that they have. I don't want anything that anybody has. I need to get what I need to get from me. I only help out myself, but I'm going to help out others, and that's what I'm doing here today, letting everybody know that Homeboy Industries is a miracle. There's a spirit, a great, great spirit that I identify with that is being used at Homeboy Industry by Father G. Boyle Gray. Of course, all his staff. It has to be, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be here. Because I lived in hell for so long, I can see the truth, you know, and I know what a lie is. I was part of it for many years. I don't no longer want to enjoy being part of a dead lie. That's my past. And I want to introduce my next. Janet. Stand up for Janet, please. I got real nervous, I did.